thread, boy. Back in 2010, I carried this thing for the Olympics. What an honor. Hey, how you doing, Isolation Nation, today? Why am I running around the neighborhood with my dog telling him stories about 2010? You know why? Because I'm trying to survive the pandemic. Today's show, Robb Nash, two B's at the end. Make no mistake, this is a great musician with an amazing story to tell. And the reason for this, Tessa Bonhomme, gold medal, Olympic, women's hockey in 2010, and a colleague of mine at TSN. And just one sec. Yeah? Well, you're weird too. Yeah? Your house needs painting. Yeah? I can't go there. Oh, I had another one, man. I gotta bite my tongue.
It's time for Tessa's pierogi party. Now, I usually host this in September, Jay,
Right.
but you say that you've never made pierogies, so I figured why not throw the party?
You are like the most versatile person on the planet, Tessa Bonhomme. First of all, I mean, I found myself getting really annoyed with people that do so many different things so well. First of all, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Let's get it out of the way right now that, I mean, we can only see you almost from the neck up. If you were on a wide shot, you would be a little wider, I guess, than you were probably 6 months ago, right?
Very true. I am expecting a little boy come July.
Oh, I can't believe I made that
stressful
noise.
times. Yeah,
I
exciting.
can't believe I made that noise though. I mean, it's so weird how you tell people, they say, what are you having? And you go, I'm having a boy. And they go, oh, great. Like if you said you were having a girl, they'd go, well, that sucks.
Oh, I feel like, I mean, I know we don't ever get to choose, but I feel like we were either going to have a boy or a tomboy just based on, who I was growing up as a kid. But like I said, you never get to choose. And no matter what the heck it is, this thing's going to get spoiled with a ton of love.
Nice. So how are you doing? Not so much with your pregnancy necessarily, although I guess it all goes into it, and I'm sure it adds anxiety given our times. But with the pandemic, I mean, we have this show that you're on right now called Isolation Nation, and our goal is to share our experiences with the pandemic, with mental health in particular, and especially if you have mental health background, if you have a story to tell, then we can tie it all together. So I'll ask the question: how you doing, Tess?
Honestly, it's been an interesting isolation, I guess you could say. One that, all of us think that we want the life where we just get to live at home and do nothing and hang out with our dogs and whatever. But I mean, that's only fun for like a day or two. And then after that, you start to feel, I felt a little bit useless and like I really needed to contribute. And I think that just comes with not being a person that's very good at sitting still. I'm always used to being on the go, especially this time of year, with a lot of sports going on and Sports Center being so busy. And technically I'm supposed to be at the Women's World Hockey Championships right now, covering a lot of my former teammates and players that I've played against, on a world stage. So it's been a strange and trying time. The anxiety part definitely comes in big time because I am pregnant, and the uncertainty, or I guess lack of knowledge and education surrounding, are we at more risk as being a pregnant individual or whatnot? So my husband and I have been very diligent about, remaining in isolation, not going out for stupid things, going out for only necessities, really washing things down, washing our hands like crazy. And I'm just trying to avoid it at all costs. And if it was just me, I think that I don't think I would feel as locked in and as nervous about it. I feel like because I'm responsible for another human being, that's when things really start to weigh. And I've never delivered a child before. And right now, a lot of hospitals are doing only one person in the room only, which would obviously be my husband, Eddie. But we also wanted to deliver with a midwife or somebody that we have a doula as well. We wanted the whole gang in there to help share their knowledge with us, to help guide us and carry us through that. But obviously with the way things are right now, if I were to go into labor, it would only be him and I, really working our way through an experience that neither of us have any idea about. So to say the least, it's caused a lot of stress, just when I start to think about it, and usually I feel like when you're pregnant and you are thinking about delivering your baby, it comes with excitement, a little bit of mystery, something like that. But the mystery right now is a little bit terrifying for me. So we just try and talk through it together. Really try and find some bright spots. We do a lot more reading, which I think is good to educate ourselves and just to be as prepared as possible.
You're done now, right?
Yeah, sorry, that was a very long.
Okay, no, that was a great answer, but I just, I just thought, you know what, I could probably take a break here. But no, you answered like every question without being asked a question, which I guess is the instinct of somebody who's on television, right? Is that you kind of anticipate what people want to know. So here's what I want to know, and it's that sense of you made reference to it. I think one of the biggest voids that people have in their lives is that lack of feeling of being useful. Because a lot of us are taken out of our normal rhythm in our lives. And when you don't feel useful, self-esteem gets affected. And I think a lot of us are in the position that you and me and Rob, who we'll talk to in just a couple of minutes, are in right now. And that is, you got to find ways to feel useful and to feel good about yourself.
Yeah. And I've kind of shifted my focus from feeling useful to self-growth. And that's picking up a hobby, or I made a list of basically 5 things that I absolutely have to do every day. And one of which is as simple as just taking my multivitamin or my prenatal vitamin in the morning, to signing up for online guitar lessons. I played guitar way back when I played hockey in 2009, 2010 as a way to communicate with my dad. My dad was my mentor growing up as a kid all through hockey, and he was never the hockey dad until that Olympics came around, that Olympic tryout came around, and our conversations became more stressful as opposed to the unloading that I would do and how much he would help me. So we needed to find a new way to communicate. And what we ended up doing was I went and bought a guitar, and he taught me how to play guitar over Skype. So I've gone back to that. And I've done virtual lessons, which is nice. Music, I find, is therapy. It helps me, and also it gives me something to shift my focus away from these stressful times, and it's mentally stimulating. Outside of that, I make sure that I take my dog for a walk every day. She's a little sweetheart, so I got to make sure that she stays in shape. But also, one of the biggest things that I find has helped me a lot, and especially in a social media day and age, is I've made a purpose to reach out to somebody new and somebody different every single day, whether it's a grade school friend over Instagram or Facebook, whether it's with a friend from my hometown that I haven't talked to in a long time. I just pick up the phone and give them a call and see how their family is doing, see how their kids are doing. And I find just talking and hearing everyone's stories and hearing that, some days suck more than others, just like mine, makes me feel a lot better about being in isolation as well.
All of those are really noble, especially the guitar thing, right? I mean, learning a skill, I think, is a really good way to improve your self-esteem. The first one, I'm not going to lie to you, when you said, I'm committing to doing 5 things. And when you said I'm committing to taking my vitamin every morning, I kind of thought to myself, perhaps she should raise expectations on herself, but you ended up doing that. Hold on one sec, Tess. I'm talking to Phil now. Phil, is there any way we can get Rob in right now? Because Tess is talking about guitar lessons, and we got a guy who I think just before we went to air was sitting with a guitar, holding a guitar, surrounded by guitars. Rob, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. If you're trying to get me to give her free guitar lessons, good luck.
No, I don't see you. I mean, I'm going to try to do it by forcing you to step up and do it. So I don't think you could teach guitar, man. Obviously you're a good player and you're a natural, but I don't think you're much on sharing, right?
Oh no, I'm very self-absorbed for sure.
Rob, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm not going to give a long answer because I don't want to get scolded like you did Tessa. So I'm good.
But you did notice her answer was long, right?
Yeah, it was fairly long. And like her,
yeah.
I've also never delivered a baby, so we have that in common. That's good.
Right. That is good. So here's Rob's story, and I'm not telling you this, Rob, because you're pretty familiar with your story, although I'm guessing you don't remember the car accident. So now I'm going to tell folks what happened. Rob was in a car accident. You were, 17 years old?
Yeah.
17 years old. And this was a bad accident. He was pronounced dead at the scene, was taken in an ambulance, I guess, to whatever the closest hospital was. And while on the way to the hospital, some vital signs actually came back, and he was brought back to life. How do you have? I assume you have no memory of that.
No, there's about 3 months missing. Coming home that Christmas, even going back to school, it was like 50 first dates, just trying to relearn everything. So, and it was actually, so I had the accident, and there was a guy just that lived down the road that had just taken a first responders course. He came, he heard the crash, and he came there. He resuscitated me, and he knew that my pulse came back. Like, he had checked for all the vital signs, and he knew that my pulse came back when blood started gushing out of my head. And then he held my head together and waiting for the ambulance to get there. So he was the one that resuscitated me. And it was years out. He would always call the hospital saying, "Hey, did that guy make it? Is everything okay?" And they couldn't say anything because of the Privacy Act. And all of a sudden he heard somebody telling my story, and I got to meet the guy, and we got to talk. And it was just, he didn't know if I'd ever come out the other side. So it was pretty interesting. And then I actually got a hold of the semi driver that hit me in that accident. He was from America, and told him too I was doing well. And just it was an interesting time, because I went from a 6'5" guy that played a lot of sports to a guy getting bathed by his mom, and brought me to a pretty dark place for a while.
Yeah, and that's you're now using that darkness to shine light on others. You can write that down, by the way, if you want. And you know, it's, I mean, that's how the context that I met you. I think I was hosting an award or an award show in Ottawa, and you were the winner of one of the awards, obviously, for work that you've done in the greater community, not just in your community. And I met you at that point, and we got to talking, and I realized that we had a lot in common, nothing to do with the accident, but everything to do with trying to use life experiences to help others. So if you could summarize your mission now, what would it be?
Well, I wondered how many people were like me that had those dark thoughts that I had and didn't talk about it. So I decided I wanted to tell my story. I chose music, even though I wasn't great at it. It was my worst mark in school, but got a little better at it, had a few hits on the radio, and then I ripped up my record deal to do a tour through youth prisons, reserves, schools, telling my story. It started with just me and a guitar, and then it got bigger and bigger, and we started writing songs together with the people that we've met. And now we perform. In fact, just a few weeks ago, we were performing at the arena in Medicine Hat for thousands of teenagers from schools. We bus all the kids in. We'll fly them in from reserves, and we tell the stories. I'll tell a story of a girl we met in lockdown, and then I'll bring her up on stage to perform with us. Just because we can tell stories. When people tell stories of mental illness, too often we only tell the stories about suicide. When we tell the stories about addiction, we only talk about the overdoses. And we can learn from tragedy, and that's important, but we have to balance that with stories of victory and triumph. So that's what our shows are all about. And we've had over 900 students have now actually walked up after our shows, talked to their counselors, their teachers, social workers, and given in their suicide notes at the end of the shows, and the razor blades from self-harm. And we're seeing a lot of people having huge breakthroughs, and a lot of them tattoo our lyrics on their arms where they used to cut. So I actually took all the signatures off all the suicide notes that have been handed in, and I tattooed all their signatures on my arms just to show young people that, look, you matter to us as well. And if you're out there struggling, these are all signatures of people that had those thoughts too once, and they're still here.
Well, that is that's really special. I didn't know. I just knew that you were kind of a tattoo guy. I didn't realize, the fact that those tattoos are a reflection of something that's incredibly important. And as weird as this sounds, it's kind of a gift to have had this awful experience. One of the things that I often say is that, depression is the worst thing that I've experienced, me personally, not people I love, but me personally. But on a day when I feel pretty good and I'm in front of people sharing my story, it's one of the best things. It's like I get to use the poison as somebody else's medicine. And that's pretty amazing. But I'm just going to prove to people that you are exactly what you say. Phil, let's roll the video now. This is Robb.
Like medication, break all my bones.
That's Robb Nash, and that's Live on Arrival. And was that a reasonable clip I picked, by the way?
Well, you just played our loudest song, so probably scared off a lot of people.
I don't think you scared anyone. Hey, Tess, go ahead, jump in if you want to. If you have a question for Robb, fire away. I know you guys really bonded in the half hour before the show, and Robb, if you got a question,
how you came to get all those tattoos on your arms, how you ripped up your record label, going to all those schools, and it brought tears to my eyes. It has nothing to do with the hormones. It brought tears to my eyes because you found a way to reach out and help people. And I have had family members struggle with mental illness. And so I guess in my experience, I often struggled very deeply with the knowledge or the wherewithal on how to help. And so in your experience in going from school to school and sharing your story, if you're not someone that wakes up and struggles with those deep thoughts or has ever had those deep thoughts, how do you help a friend or a family member, get through one of those hard days or through a hard experience?
Well, I think often people ask us, hey, what do I say to make this all better? My friend is struggling. And it's like, well, those words don't exist. Sometimes it's just, being available to listen. And often,
we're having trouble hearing you now. The internet,
people around you,
kind of crapped out a little bit, unless you're doing that on purpose, which would be a hell of a skill to be able to do this and appear to be. I can't go on with that much longer. Let's. That's better. Okay, continue your story.
No, I think we're least effective in our own families and our closest friends sometimes because it's hard to open up. And I think especially for young men, we're supposed to toughen up and suck it up. Don't cry. That's not a good thing. But I think a lot of people, we live in a society where we're supposed to bottle it up, not talk about it. And, but I think holding in your emotions, holding in your struggles, holding in your tears, like you got to let that stuff out once in a while. And when I meet with somebody, all you can offer is that you're available. You can't be responsible for them.
Yeah, your internet is not good right now. I told you, Robb, don't surround yourself. Well, Robb Nash's camera just dropped out. All right, Tess. No, now it's just about me and you now, right? We finally got rid of Nash and his, sure, he was dead for a while, and sure, he spent the rest of his life committed to helping other people. I mean, it's a wonderful story, but we all know it's about you and I. A question for you: how do you continue to physically take care of yourself during this isolation?
I made a massive to-do list that I keep adding things to. And I made a rule that I'm only allowed to knock off 2 things a day because I don't want to run out of, things to do in a sense. They say the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is make your bed so you feel like you've accomplished something. Well, that to-do list is to make it feel like at the end of each day, okay, I've accomplished something. I set out a goal and I did it. Obviously, there's days where I just happen to do more than 2 of them just because I'm walking by or laundry just needs to be done, whatever. But just make myself feel like I've accomplished something and get a task done for the day, a task or 2 done.
Let's see. Can we go to Robb? Is that a possibility? Let's see.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Robb.
Nice.
You can hear me now. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I paused and just switched to just data. So I didn't know if there was an issue with my Wi-Fi there.
Okay, well, let's go back to what you were saying. And I believe Tessa asked you for advice on helping someone that has a mental health struggle or battle, but she's never experienced the same sort of thing. So how do you talk to someone without saying, I understand what you're feeling?
Yeah, well, I think so often people want to right away jump to cliches and you want to find that magical phrase that's going to make it all better. And that phrase doesn't exist. And I think it's so important to just be available. Like sometimes it's just listening that's so important, and sometimes we're least effective in our own families. Sometimes we don't want to open up to our own family. It's hard to, especially as in our society, we're told to suck it up, you know, especially for young men. Don't talk about it. Don't show your emotions. Don't talk about your struggles. Don't cry. But I think if you hold in tears, for example, I think that's like poison. You got to get that stuff out sometimes. And sometimes it takes a stranger, you know, and whenever I deal with a family, I've sung it and spoken at so many funerals, and I just look, if your family member was struggling, would you be available for them if they would have asked to talk? He goes, yeah, of course. Well, that's all you can do. Like, you can be available, but you can't be responsible. And then to understand too, like if somebody, you know, starts dealing with cancer, like we go and get help, we go to the hospital, we reach out to resources that are out there. And, but when it comes to mental illness, like there's a stigma that doesn't just go with the individual, but with the family. So now people don't want to bring in their kid to a counselor because what will the community think about us? But you got to look at mental illness just like any other illness. When you need help, and you reach out to the people that can help you. And there's no phrase to make it all better. You don't have to. And getting back to what you said, Michael, you said sometimes that your toughest struggles is like a gift because you can help other people with it. You know, a lot of people told me when I had my accident that everything happens for a reason. And they said it with good intentions because they didn't know what to say. But I've met so many people in prison, hospitals, funerals on this tour, and people hear that. They say everything happens for a reason. For me, I lay there trying to now figure out what was the reason I got hit by a semi-truck. And one day somebody walked up to me, and this is what kind of became my turnaround moment. Somebody said, Rob, I know the reason you were hit by a semi-truck. And I was like, what is it? He said, you were going too fast on an icy road. And I was like, wow, that sounds simple, but that set me free. I realized we get to make our own decisions. And this is what I believe. Like, I don't think bad things happen for a reason, but I think they happen with potential, both good and bad. There's the potential. You can take your story, it can bring you down, or there's a potential. You can use it, get through it. You can tell your story like you have, Michael, like you, Tessa. I can tell my story. It's a part of your rebuilding. Facing a struggle in your life can actually build up your resiliency. You can become stronger through it, but it's not automatic. Things happen with the potential. This COVID crisis right now, tragedy has the potential to tear apart an individual, a family, a community, city, country, but there's also the potential. This can bring a family together. It can bring a community together. It's all about the decisions that we make around it. You having mental illness, Michael, didn't automatically make you do what you've done. You know, you've made some decisions to take your story and turn it around, do something with it. And that's an important decision that you've made, and you've helped people with it.
You know, I love what you said. I'm going to go back and actually transcribe it. You know, when you're talking about, because I'm not a believer in, you know, everything happens for a purpose, and I don't believe that, because some things are so terrible that there is no upside to it. But when bad things happen, your point was that there's the potential for good, and I think that. I learned something really important today. Hey, Tessa, when you played, obviously, for the national team, 2010, you played at Ohio State. Did any of your teammates along the way ever speak about mental health battles like depression or anxiety?
Yeah, and I don't think it was through them announcing it or anything like that. It was through, you know, we're as a team, especially at school and especially during an Olympic year, you're around each other a lot and you become family members. You see them more than you see and talk to your actual family members. So you kind of become this sisterhood. And through that, you kind of start to see the day-to-day wear that someone might have. You know, we notice one day they come in, they're just a little bit off, and the next day it's like all of a sudden they're, you know, starting to pull themselves away from the group. And the next thing you know, you don't really hear from them and they haven't said anything all day. And it's like, well, that's not how so-and-so always is. What's going on? And it takes usually a leader or a good friend on the team just to put your arm around that person and just say, all right, is everything going okay? And I've had a teammate at Ohio State say, no, absolutely not. Things were not okay. Things were not going well, and that they needed to speak to someone. And thankfully, she did. And, you know, we were all supportive to her and for her. And she's a successful young lady today. And to be honest, her grades were suffering. Not that it matters, but her play was suffering. And then to see her, completely flip a switch after being able to talk about it and go through therapy, and you could just see this weight all of a sudden be not completely lifted off her shoulders, but off of her shoulders enough that she finally became the person that we hadn't even met yet. When we had met her, it was almost like she had this little facade on. She was putting on a show for us. But then after all of this, it was like, oh my gosh, there you are. Like, I think it helped too that we were a group of 18, 19 women who accepted her and, who understood that she was in a struggle and tried our best to understand what she was going through and let her know and reminded her that no matter what, we were always going to be there for her. If there was a day that she just couldn't come to practice or didn't want to, it wasn't like, well, so-and-so didn't have to come to practice today. It was like, like after practice, we'd all be texting her like, you cool? You want us to stop by? We can drop off dinner, like whatever. So I feel like, I don't want to say you're lucky in a sense she was lucky in a sense to have been surrounded by a lot of people in that moment, but she was, right? And it was a group of people that cared about her and loved her. And even in that moment too, I mean, we none of us, we were just young teenagers, had any idea how to deal with any of that, except for just try to be the best friends we could.
Right. I mean, she was lucky to be around teammates that understood, that she felt comfortable with enough, to be able to talk about it. But also, I mean, it's no different than Robb was lucky that there was someone who had studied to be a paramedic, who came to the scene. Right. I mean, that obviously played a dramatic factor in his life. But I think that, the friends that surrounded her probably were equally dramatic. Okay, Robb, I told you to study up about Tessa. Tell us something about Tessa that you learned before we came on the air.
Well, first of all, I love the fact that when she was on the, when she was playing hockey, I played a lot of hockey myself. And then when you were trying out the figure skating, the fact that you had to struggle, realizing you were not going to be the petite one on the ice, I thought that was fantastic. But just to see, like you just said, Michael, people from all different walks of life that I saw a video of you just talking about mental illness, you sharing with what you're doing, what you've seen in your family, it's just so important where somebody that's a hockey player or, watches TSN, how somebody they can relate to. For me, it's like, a musician. We all have our roles, and if we all start expressing ourselves within those roles, and it just has such an opportunity to, to be there. But I do have this question: did you hold on to any of those outfits? Do you wear them around the house at all?
Okay, let me jump in. Tell people what he's talking about. 2011, you were with David Peltier, also a gold medalist from the Olympics. He was a pairs figure skater, and you guys teamed up on Battle of the Blades and eventually won Battle of the Blades. Okay, now go ahead.
Yeah, he did most of the work. I will say that, poor Dave. And to allude to what you were saying, I was used to being a small defenseman. I had equipment though that could make me look bigger. And then I shifted to figure skating, where all of a sudden in pairs, obviously the female are very petite. So the men can lift them up and twirl them around and do all those fancy tricks that they do. Well, I was going in there still training for hockey. So I was 5'5", $140, and poor Dave had to lug me around the whole place. So here I was with no equipment on and the biggest person out there, which was a complete role reversal for me. It was something that I had to get used to. On top of it, I mean, I'm used to being covered in equipment, mask, you can barely see my face. All of a sudden I'm wearing basically underwear, strutting my stuff around out there. So it was a super uncomfortable moment where I all of a sudden had to really check myself and say, am I comfortable with me out here? Like, do I care? And I felt like at first I didn't. I was very self-conscious. But then through it, I found the fun. And I was like, you know what? If the people say this all the time, but I truly did learn to live it in that moment where if I can't laugh at myself or have fun with myself in this moment, then I shouldn't be doing this. I'm not made for this moment. But I felt like, you know what, I'm going to embrace this. When am I ever going to be able to do this again? And I did. With that, no, those outfits were worn once and then completely gone. I do not want those around anymore, especially being 6 months pregnant now.
I guess David Peltier is going on, thank God for small things, but wasn't pregnant, in
Yeah.
2011.
Exactly.
Okay, tell us something about Robb that you learned in your research for this.
That he's 6'5". He's got a beard. He looks like the most manly macho of rock stars, and that depression, dark thoughts, much like the COVID virus, doesn't discriminate, and that he was somebody who had to come to terms with that and realize, what, I'm a dude. I love sports. I'm told to be tough. I'm told to suck it up, but this is how I feel. And to, be able to break down that barrier that society builds up in front of young men, for him to be able to do that, especially coming out of such a crazy, wild and tragic story, which actually didn't turn out to be tragic, turned out to be very successful and helpful, to actually be able to go around to schools, which I think is amazing, and to literally save lives lyric by lyric. And it's I feel like I need to do more now because what you've done is amazing. And I know a lot of those families of the names that you have written on your arms are so thankful for you every day. And I'm just really lucky and thankful to be able to even have this conversation and be able to chat with you. It would be nice to be in the same room as you, but right now this is how we're doing it because of COVID.
Yeah.
But to say that I've met you is pretty sweet, and I can't wait to share your story with all my family and friends. I mean, that link that you sent me on YouTube about your story, I already forwarded it to a bunch of people, so I hope you don't mind that I'm now sharing your story as well.
Cool. And you are practicing guitar, so you say you want to do more. If you get good, maybe we'll bring you on tour with us.
Yeah, fair enough. If you're ever rolling through, I mean, just send me the chords. I'll practice. My husband actually is a musician as well. He runs a music facility here for kids to learn, and he's, with COVID, had to transfer everything to e-learning. So all of his teachers do stuff virtually, which is why I decided to sign up for it. So I'll make sure to put the pressure on. I'm going to learn some of your songs, and if you're ever rolling through, I might just stop by.
Careful. And I'll say this too, the fact that you picked up a guitar, like you had your 5 things, taking a vitamin. Yeah, that sounds simple, but like the simple things you can do in these times, like to get up and shower, and get dressed. If you've been in your pajamas for 3 days, like
Hey, back away from the attitude on the pajamas. Sweatpants. Although sweatpants technically, I looked it up. Sweatpants are a step above pajamas, right? So I'm not ashamed of the fact that you can't see me from the waist down. And as I've said on each one of these shows, I'm now 23 days. I have a streak of 23 days wearing pants with no button. This is a personal best, and I'm going to try to extend that as long as this COVID-19 thing goes on. Okay, I just got a couple of questions, and I know that neither one of you is really capable of abiding by this, but just give me one word or one line. What do you miss most, Tessa, right now with the fact that we're forced to isolate?
Family, my nephew.
Nice. Robb, what do you miss most?
I miss performing, but we are putting out videos with stories. I just love the fact that we get to tell stories. So just doing it in a different way, but I miss performing.
I'm asking this for a selfish reason, Tessa. What are you watching? I'm desperate for more TV shows. I've watched everything.
Have you watched everything, though?
I don't know. I mean, and I've lowered my standard. I've lowered my standard so much that if you ever found out the things that I've watched, I would be ruined for life. Case, okay. My daughter's sitting across from me, and I walked in the room and she was watching one of the shows I'm talking about. She went, "We never talk about this ever." So yeah, what are you watching?
Three good shows for you to watch. One of which is a TV series, Handmaid's Tale. That one is intense. Yep. The other two, The Last Waltz. It's about the band. And then just a follow-up to that, it's called Once We're Brothers. It's also about the band. Ed and I just stormed through both of them last night, and they're both very well done. Okay, well, I'm not watched Handmaid's Tale, but I haven't seen the other two, so thank you for that. How about you, Robb? Or are you too hipster for TV?
No, I got my go-tos like Family Guy, but I just watched The Devil Next Door, which is you heard of that?
Oh my God! Oh yeah,
guy from Cleveland there, yeah. they thought he was. They were trying to figure out whether he was from
John Demjanjuk. Yeah, you're talking to a Jew with a fascination about World War II. So when that came out, it was like, okay, I am so on that. Have you watched Hunters?
No.
Hunters is with Al Pacino, and he plays a Nazi hunter. It is so ridiculously intense. Have you seen it, Tessa?
No.
No. What platform is that one on?
What platform is it on, Case? Hunters?
Prime.
It's on Prime.
Prime.
Yeah.
Oh, another
Right.
good show, a movie. It's by kids, but it's not for kids, so do not have young children around. It's called Good Boys. Have you seen that?
No. Good Boys?
Oh,
No.
man, it's hilarious. That's also on Prime. You can rent it on HBO and Crave as well, but well worth the laugh.
Why are both of you like mentioning where to download these and where platform? Like, you guys getting?
Well,
paid
because
for
you
this
got to
stuff?
know.
You got to know. She's right. I mean, you're such a rebel, Rob, that, you know, it's like, oh, you know, you hate capitalism, right? And the truth is, we're not getting paid. Although we both are employed by Bell Media, and Bell Media owns Crave. So maybe Rob's right. Maybe that's why you've sold out.
I did. I didn't. That's just where I watched it. That's where I found it.
Okay, one final question. What is your go-to quarantine look? Tessa, you first.
You're looking at it. A comfortable sweater. And since I am pregnant and I just popped a week and a half ago, it is spandex pants and basically anything stretchy without a button, like you said. Comfortable. Nothing that squeezes too tight.
And you, Rob?
Chaps. Licorice chaps.
Licorice chaps?
Yeah.
I don't understand the
Don't
the
judge
word.
it. Don't judge it till you've tried it. Okay.
Okay. Well, you know what?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
In your background, if we could pop you up full screen right now, it looks like those cereal dispensers that you see at like hotels and stuff. Yeah, is that candy in there?
That's all candy. There's gummy bears in here. There's every variation of the gummy bear, or no, Sour Patch. I'm not a fan of gummy bears. I find gummy bears to be continually disappointing, but Sour Patch and varieties off that. Yeah, that is yeah.
See again, product placement.
Yeah.
Again.
You know what? You know, I resent that, Rob, because here's the truth is that I will never sell out, but this Planters bar mix, you know, this isn't a sellout. This is so yummy. All right.
Throw me one.
We're having too much fun right now. You guys are awesome. And I have to say that both of your stories are so incredibly touching. I know, Tessa, you didn't get to talk a lot about yours, but this COVID-19 thing is not going away. So why don't we, not next week, because that would look like we have no access to any other guests, but why don't we the week after, the three of us come back and do this again? How about that?
I'm good.
Rob, thanks, man. God, you know, I hate to say it. You're better than me at this. Damn. Oh, it's so disappointing that you're this good at this. I just was listening to you, you know, like riffing about how, you know, bad things happen. And it's not that they happen for a reason, but they're opportunity. And I learned a whole lot. So Tessa, Rob, thanks for doing this today.
I'm glad we're on the same team.
Thanks for having us.
We are on the same team. Okay. And that's the show for today. We do this Monday to Friday. Who knows? Maybe we'll start to do it on the weekend. It's called Isolation Nation. We're here because we think people need to hear stories at any time, but especially at this time. One of the questions that we got on Facebook was, to me, how is Isolation Nation helping me? And I think it's helping me by occupying my time, first of all. And it's making me realize that I do have a use and I do have a purpose. And given the fact that this time kind of pushes us in the other direction, and the fact that I do have this illness called depression, and it does affect my self-esteem, and it does make me feel alone, and it makes me feel hopeless sometimes, and it makes me feel purposelessness or purposeless. It's really important to be able to have a chance to do this. So I kind of look at it like a blessing. So spread the word. Tell people about the show. You don't have to watch it live, of course. It lives on our various platforms. And I have to say one thing that's been amazing. There's not one guest that I've reached out to who has said no. People have time, like you can't go, I'm too busy. And people also want to help the community. They want to use their words to make a difference. And I try to say something at the end of every show that maybe you can file away. And this one is for those that have always thought mental illness was a choice. No one chooses mental illness. Mental illness chooses us. Think about that. Nobody chooses it. It chooses us. So all those things that you thought in the past, and now you're feeling anxiety and, maybe some depression, some OCD, maybe throwing some panic, maybe you realize now, maybe you learned that it's not a choice. We'll see you tomorrow on the show. Thanks to Jansen for saying to us, you guys, SickNotWeak, we like what you do. So do something really cool. And I think this is really cool. We'll see you on Monday. Have a safe weekend, and don't leave your house unless you have a dog.